It's probably been a while since you've spent much time on the playground, unless your children or grandchildren are of a certain age. I remember when my boys were of the age, and it felt like I spent every waking moment on the playground, chasing my kids, incessantly pushing them on the swing, or constantly watching them master a new trick as they ran from one activity to another. As they called to me, "Watch, Daddy, look at what I can do." And I can still hear the pitch of their voices. "Daddy, did you see that? Watch this." To this day, if I close my eyes, I can watch in my mind's eye either of my boys on some amalgamated playground as they climb, swing, jump, whirl, abound on a spinning platform, or wobble along a rolling log until, laughing, finally, they fall off, losing their balance. As I was helping Aiden study for his Regents exam in physics, one of the questions transported me back to those playground days. For everywhere one looks on a playground, there are bodies in motion, energies in search of adventure, and physics lessons being tacitly learned. As I reflect on it now, it seems that the very experiences that these children seek on the playground are the ones we adults seek to avoid at all costs. Disequilibrium, novelty, loss of control, surprise, spinning around in circles until you want to throw up. Sure, they make for a great playground, but for quite a dangerous life, we tell ourselves. We avoid all these things so much that if we noticed some unbalanced element of our life, or in one of our agencies or organizations, if it were to look like a teeter-totter, for instance, we'd immediately brace it, shore it up on both ends, turning it into a stable plank. It got me wondering, why has equilibrium become such a prized goal in the adult life? Why do we seek so earnestly after balance? Is change so fearsome that we'll do anything to avoid it? In Aiden's physics exam prep, I rediscovered the definition of the word equilibrium. 1, a condition in which all acting influences are canceled by others, resulting in a stable, balanced, or unchanging system. 2, specifically in physics, the condition of a system in which the resultant of all acting forces is zero. I was surprised by the negativity of these two definitions. A condition in which the result of all activity is zero? I don't know about you, but that definition sounds a lot to me like the definition of death. Why then do we adults desire equilibrium so much? Do we really want death? Why exactly is predictability, peace, and safety so much the goal of our days? It clearly wasn't the goal of Jesus or his life goal. In today's gospel, he totally upends our typical expectations for life when he drops a bombshell. "Do not think that I've come to bring peace to the earth. I have not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I've come to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and one's foes will be members of one's own household." I'm not sure we needed Jesus for that to happen, but if he wants to claim it, fine. Of course, we don't hear Jesus' words describing the exhilarating, topsy-turvy world of our childhood playgrounds. No, they stop us in our tracks and send our hearts running for the door in panic. We become like those fearful parents sitting on the playground bench yelling after their kids, "Be careful, honey. Watch out for that other boy. Use both hands. Take turns now. Run a little slower, please." And our corrosive anxiety continues to shape the world and make it an ever more fearful and unsafe place in which to live. Our fear prompts us to take out all the fun and adventure in life and search for tranquility and stability of equilibrium. Fear. Fear. Is there any more pervasive or powerful motivating force in human experience? If there is, I don't know it. From the moment we're born, we learn to fear the world around us, certainly to fear the stranger, and sometimes to fear even those who are closest to us. If they knew the truth about us, maybe they'd reject us. Political leaders have long recognized the power of fear in ensuring our conformity to the structures of this world, even when doing so does not serve our best interests as a species or the long-term sustainability of our planet. Fear is the driving force behind vast segments of our economy, as well as increasingly our political priorities. We fear so much that we think if we have more guns, then we'll be safe. If we can build a bigger wall, then we'll be secure. But Jesus recognizes that fear will also cause us to fail to live the abundant life that he promises. So instead of fretting on the playground sidelines, Jesus is starkly realistic about the threats his disciples will face, the threats that we will face. And at the same time, he builds the case why we should not let this fear master us or hinder our witness to that abundant, joyful existence, that life of relationship to which we are called and created to be in. Perhaps Jesus is trying to teach us a physics lesson. In today's gospel, I think he's calling into question the existence of equilibrium as the desirable state to which we should aspire. Instead, I think he's pointing out that organizational equilibrium, enshrined as the status quo, is the sure path to institutional and personal death, the veritable road to zero, trafficked by fearful people. Our teacher Jesus is inviting us to see the world differently, not as a closed system, a closed world of limited choices, but an abundant, verdant one, an open world of relationality and opportunity. Unfortunately, most of us have been taught to believe in a world of scarcity. Most of us are like Hagar, out in the wilderness, putting our own children a bow's shot away from us simply because we can't see what's around us. We live in a world of death, of equilibrium, until God opens our eyes and shows us water right in front of us. Yes, Jesus invites us to think differently about the world and the physics that govern the world in which we live. He invites us to reconsider the second law of thermodynamics. You might not have heard that in the text this morning, but I did. Now, you may have forgotten that what this law states specifically, but I assure you that we act on its assumptions daily. It's what I've taught my boys from the time that they were able to interact with the world. Whenever they'd roughly throw a toy or drop something fragile, I'd say, "Careful. Everything eventually breaks. It will wear out. Be careful." In classical thermodynamics, equilibrium is the end state in the evolution of a closed system, the point at which the system exhausted all capacity for change, done its work, and dissipated its productive capacity until its useless entropy. Or in other words, entropy is the inverse measure of a system's capacity for change. The more entropy there is, the less the system is capable of changing. At equilibrium, there is nothing left for the system to do. It can produce nothing more. This finite way of thinking shapes the world that we live in. We often imagine that that the universe we live in is a closed system, that it's eventually wearing down and winding up, reaching equilibrium. But as our teacher Jesus, we're quick to point out, this is a misapplication of our scientific theory. The second law of thermodynamics applies only to isolated or closed systems, essentially only to machines. The most obvious exemption to this law is life. Everything alive is an open system that engages with its environment and continues to grow, evolve, and adapt. Everything alive contains potential, energy, and unpredictability. Everything alive has hope, even when all seems lost. Living systems can adapt, change, and grow. Yet both our science and our culture have been profoundly affected by the images of degradation contained in classical thermodynamics. When we see decay as inevitable, or our society as inevitably going to ruin, or time as the road to inexorable death, then we become fearful acolytes of the second law of thermodynamics. We let our fear force us to exchange the unbridled joy and exploration of that unfettered life on the playground for the boring and drab existence of the insurance salesman's actuarial table that allows one to mitigate risk and uncertainty to foster some limited financial upside. If we believe that the universe is on a relentless road to death, we can't help but live in fear of change. In a downhill world, any change exhausts our store of valuable energy and leaves us empty, one step closer to death. Staying put or keeping our balance is a means of defense against the eroding forces of nature. We want nothing to change because only decline awaits us. Any form of present stasis is preferable to the unknown future of deterioration. But in venerating equilibrium, we have blinded ourselves to the processes that foster life. We've come to believe a lie. We've chosen death over life. You see, this is not the life-giving, God-loving world we're meant to live in. Maybe when Jesus suggests, "Whoever loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Whoever loves son or daughter or more than me is not worthy of me," he's not telling us that we should actually hate our loved ones or love him more. But maybe he's inviting us to stop treating each other as machines in a closed system. He's inviting us to stop believing that the only way we could motivate others was by pushing and prodding them into action with the proverbial stick or carrot, trying to get them to overcome their inertia by the sheer force of our own energy. Perhaps Jesus' provocative words, "Those who find their life will lose it, and those who lose their life for my sake will find it," are inviting us to again reconsider and return to that abundant life of the playground, to that open place where we learn, grow, and change through disequilibrium. Jesus' call is one to embrace the abundant life of relationship and interdependence of the world where we are called to inhabit. The questions at the heart of today's gospel are simple. Can we dump these warped notions of thermodynamics and get to the living heart of the matter? Can we respond to life in community and in ourselves and give up on the death watch we seem to have committed our culture to? Can we give up our clumsy attempts to keep things in balance, always the same, never changing, and maybe finally open ourselves up to the change that we so desire, the change that we're built for? To do so, we'll have to make ourselves vulnerable and face our fears. And this is not an easy task. We know that to be true. Change is never easy. But today's gospel promises us that God will be there like a loving parent, engaging and playing with us on the playground. God is not anxiously fretting over us, worried about what we'll do next. As the text says, God knows and cares even for the sparrows, and they're sold for 2 for a penny. God knows even the hairs on our heads better than we do, even the gray ones, increasing though they may be. God is the parent who's inviting us to dream, to learn, explore, and have fun. And God is watching, like a loving parent, egging us on, responding to, "Look what I can do," with a smile, and "Go get 'em," and yet readily available to comfort us should we get scared or skin a knee. Today, I hope that you'll rediscover the joy of life on God's playground. May you change and grow into that beloved child that God created you to be. Amen.